This is HighIntensityBusiness.com with Lawrence Neal, helping you achieve your health and fitness goals. Become a great personal trainer and build your high-intensity strength training business.
Lawrence Neal here, and welcome back to HighIntensityBusiness.com. This is episode 229. Today's guests are HIIT enthusiast Simon Costello. Simon, I didn't know how else to introduce you, so I figured HIIT enthusiast was the suitable label. And high-intensity personal trainer Nigel Lyons, aka the Irish contingent. We are the only people in Ireland, plus one of my friends here in Galway who I know of that are actually into high-intensity training. So if there's any other people out there, reach out to us because we're trying to grow the popularity of HIIT in Ireland. Guys, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Thanks, Lawrence.
You're welcome. So recently we had a really awesome day in Dublin. I took the train up there to see both of you. It's always really cool to meet people who have listened to the show and obviously meet people who have a common interest in high intensity training. We had an awesome day. We had some great conversation. We had a great workout, a really nice dinner, talking about all things HIIT and HIIT business. And one of the things I wanted to get into first in this podcast is just understand the genesis from both of you, because I'm always fascinated to learn about how people get into high intensity training, because it's still such a niche community. So Simon, tell me, how did you first get into high intensity training?
It was probably about 6 years ago. I would have always been into weight training from, teenager years, maybe 15, 16, doing the dumbbells at home sort of thing. And then into, barbell type stuff, into the gym, doing various sorts of workouts, whether 3x10, 5x5, whatever it might have been over the years. And then it was probably through Doug McGuff, a YouTube of him, and I got the Body by Science book. From memory, that's how I got into specifically HIIT. It just made so much sense to me, reading the material and the science, and then the type of workout just really sort of mentally suited me, the efficiency of it. Doing the one set and really just being able to push yourself to failure just sort of suited my mindset. So I just fell in love with that type of training. And probably as well the injury-free style of it. Because at that stage I had a couple of injuries around my shoulder and my hip. So I was looking for something a bit more, safe and away from, explosive weight movements. That was probably it. So yeah, about 6 years ago, and I've been pretty much doing it ever since, once or twice a week.
Do you remember what caused you to come across Doug's stuff on? Because I think we might have spoken about this in Starbucks. I can't remember if you told me it was his 21 convention presentation, but I'd just be curious. Do you remember where you were at in terms of your headspace at the time? How you came across Doug's stuff?
I think I'm trying to remember. There was a blog post actually with a guy. I can't remember the name of the blog now, but he was into it. It was some American or Canadian guy, maybe. I'll try and think of the name, but I know he's finished his blog post a few years ago now. But he was into it, and he referenced Doug McGuff, and it was from there I think it was nearly a direct reference to Body by Science. So probably more that route. And I can't remember if it was the 21 convention or where exactly I saw him on YouTube. But I remember getting the book then soon after that and, really enjoying it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It seems like that is the most common way that a lot of I say younger generation, but like not younger generation, sorry, but those that have got into high intensity training in sort of the last 10 years, that seems like the common route is via Doug's work online or Body by Science. So it's cool to see that that's obviously really getting a lot of people on the bandwagon, so to speak. Awesome. Nigel, what about you? What was the genesis for you getting into HIIT?
Yeah, so for me, I think it was similar to Simon, actually. It was I was looking back at my emails because I remember actually inquiring about a high intensity training certification and that was back in 2012. So that's what's that, 7 years ago now or something like that. And I was probably into it before then as well. So I was always interested in exercise, and I was always, looking online and researching different areas. And I had initially qualified, I think, as a personal trainer in around 2011 or around that time as well. That was obviously more of a mainstream qualification.
What was that? What qualification was that one?
So that was just, I did that qualification initially. I did that part-time over 18 weeks. So that was probably just after I had left. I used to work in financial services. So I left. When I finished in that, I decided to become a personal trainer. And that was, it was a national certification with a place in Dublin called the National Training Centre. So I just did that part-time over 18 weeks. So yeah, but in regards to high intensity training, I think I'd probably come across, I remember listening to Drew or seeing stuff on Drew Bay's blog and Doug McGuff as well. I think I had probably came across his video on the 21 convention as well. And then obviously purchased the Body by Science book then as well and read that. And I think it was then when I really started actually practicing it myself. And as Simon said, I've been pretty much training that way ever since now as well.
Well, what made you, because obviously you qualified as a kind of traditional personal trainer from what it sounds. So what made you move towards high intensity training? Like, do you remember, was it just you were Googling one day and you came across Drew's stuff, and then obviously you started going down that rabbit hole and then it was very convincing, or can you talk a little bit more about what made you switch and, the time, what was happening around then for you?
So thinking back, I think when I did my certification, I was still kind of aware of high intensity training, but not that much. So that the certification was obviously the kind of mainstream stuff, like the more of the higher volume training. I think when I came across high intensity training, it just made sense for me, like as a personal trainer and from a business perspective. If I could get people the same results in 60 to 90 minutes a week as most people could do in 2 or 3 hour long sessions, that just made sense to me, and then the science that seemed to back it up then as well. When I did an actual certification in high intensity training, it just made sense, when I was looking through all the stuff and all the literature and that, and even just practicing the workouts myself, it just, when you do your first 1 or 2 high intensity training workouts properly, you actually feel the difference, like, and you notice the difference when you're just doing like a normal workout. So that's probably what convinced me to get started. And then obviously it made sense from a business perspective to try and stand out, I guess, from other personal trainers, is to build my business around high intensity training. And I had gotten a little bit of help with that from the guy who I got certified through as well, Chris Lutz. And yeah, it was just, that's pretty much, I think, how it started.
And what was his certification called?
His one was, so there was 3 different levels. It was junior one, but it was Sparta high intensity training certification.
Is that still available now as well? Do you know?
As far as I know, he sold the certification, I think, on to someone else.
Oh yeah, I think it's Mike Lepowski. Is that correct? Who now owns that? I'm not 100%
sure. Yeah, I know they have a certification as well. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, that was who I initially, got an actual certification in high intensity training, because there wasn't that, when I was looking around to see if there was any certifications, it was very, very little available to actually get certified in high intensity training, so I didn't just want to go and start training clients without having, the full kind of knowledge behind me,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, makes sense. So I want to talk about our workout, which was really fun. Fun may be the wrong word. No, it was fun. I mean, it was uncomfortable, but it was still fun. And, for those listening to this, there will be, when this is published, there will be a video of the workout, which will be produced by myself, and I'm a proper novice when it comes to any sort of video production, but I'll try and make it as interesting as possible with some nice kind of fade-ins and all of that. But that was a really interesting experience. It's always really cool to get together with, people who are into high-intensity training. And obviously, it's a real treat to be trained by you, Nigel, someone who's got obviously a lot of experience doing this. So I wanted to walk through some of that workout and talk about it a little bit and just see what comes up. One of the things that I think both surprised me and Simon at the start was you had a little warm up for us. So do you want to just describe why do you add a warm up why did you decide to add a warm up to your sort of overall programming?
Yeah. So, the warm up is just something I started doing over the last while. I know, the high intensity kind of rigid kind of advocates might probably, generally they don't say that you need a warm up, that the first 1 or 2 sets is the warm up really. But I don't know. I just find sometimes if I'm training myself or sometimes for clients, I think psychologically it can be good to have a very kind of small warm up just to kind of start training the muscles that you're going to be training that day. And then, if you're doing legs and you're doing like a very heavy leg press, I think psychologically it can be useful just to do even a kind of lighter set first, just to kind of prepare yourself almost kind of mentally for a heavier set. That's generally I just do like, one leg exercise, one pushing exercise and one pulling exercise. Obviously you're not taking the warm up anywhere near full failure, but it's just it's just a kind of quick kind of warm up. Generally I'm chatting to the clients and asking how they're feeling and stuff like that when they're doing the warm up anyways.
Well, yeah, it's quite funny because when Simon and I were doing the push-ups, I was like, yeah, I could probably do like 2 more. So I was like almost at failure, which wasn't expected.
Yeah. I was getting worried doing those push-ups.
So what, like Simon, for someone who's been obviously, you've been training yourself for quite a while now. How did you find, would you typically do a warm up like we did or what would you normally do? And how did you find that?
No, I haven't done a warm up for a while now. I used to do probably nearly similar, a bit of push-ups and maybe some lunges and a bit of a sort of dynamic, leg swings or arm swings just to get the blood flowing. I probably still do maybe a little bit of lunges and leg swings before doing a leg press, just to, as Nigel says, nearly more to be sort of mentally prepared as well. But typically I just start straight into it and take the first exercise nearly as the warm up. But I felt it was quite good doing the warm up with Nigel. You did feel, I don't know, a bit more prepared to then get into the real, workout itself. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I can certainly see the value in it, especially if one, you're working with someone who's a real novice, and secondly, if you're doing a certain workout for the first time, which we effectively were, in terms of just like priming the body, maybe like you say, if you're doing a certain leg press or a certain machine for the first time and you just want to understand how it works and the movement pattern and things like that, it does seem to make sense to me that you would perhaps put someone on a lighter load just to feel it out before you do that, set to failure. So yeah, I think it definitely has a place in programming, and it's completely up to the trainer whether they think adds value or not. And maybe it's more nuanced than that. Maybe if you had access to like really good machines and really good kit, maybe there'd be less requirement. I know it's quite funny when we all got together. I said, I asked you guys if you'd ever used Nautilus or Med-X, and neither of you had ever used that stuff. And I was like, you haven't lived, because those machines are just awesome. And it did make me think that, on something like a Med-X where the strength curve is and the friction is, the strength curve is so good and the friction is so low that maybe it enables a trainer to skip the warm up because it's just much safer and smoother machine, easier to use perhaps. So that's quite interesting to know. But it just shows as well, obviously, you don't need this advanced stuff to be able to deliver a really effective workout. I mean, we were using all sorts of machines that are available everywhere. We were using resistance bands, body weight. So again, any mode, whether it's free weights, body weight, machines will yield the same results, essentially. So let's talk about the workout for a second. I pinged that over to you guys just to give you a quick sort of try to jog your memory about what we did, as it was some time ago now. And so what, Nigel, from a programming perspective, what made you decide to design it that way for us?
I mean, generally, if it's a new client or someone, who hasn't trained that much before, then I'll give them generally go with full body workouts to start off, just because I feel like, if they're hitting the full body 2 to 3 times per week, they're gonna start to feel the muscles working, and that's gonna get them the desired results. Obviously for you guys, you're kind of used to high intensity training, but I still think, doing a full body workout, high intensity training style is, if I wanted to work you guys hard, that's probably the best way to do it, a full body workout. Doing a hit style is always going to be very challenging, but it's just good. I train that way a lot of the time myself. I do full body workouts, and you're pretty much covering the whole body, 2 to 3 times per week, and for most people, that's all that's necessary to get great results.
And I just wanted to, obviously there'll be a video, as I say, in a blog post for reference if people want to see the workout highlights. But one of the exercises, I'm not sure if I got this right, was the first one following the warm-up with the resistance band. Was that a pullover? Have I got that, described that right? Is that called something else?
Yeah, so that's, pullover, with the resistance band. Yeah. So there's another version of the pullover with the dumbbells that you do lying flat on the bench. Which I've used that one as well, but I just found that one with the band. I've kind of been doing that one the last while myself and with some clients over the last few months. I think I seen it somewhere. I think before. I don't know, was it one of Marcelo's videos or something like that? I just seen it, and then I practiced it myself, and I found it quite good. Like the resistance on it, and obviously with the resistance band, you can, change the resistance depending on where you place your hands on the band. You can go up higher for more resistance. You can change the band for higher resistance as well. So, I just found it quite a good exercise. I think you guys find it quite good as well and challenging, that one.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Is that Marcelo Mesquita you're referring to, yeah?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Okay, cool. Just want to make sure my guy knows that. We need to link that up in the show notes. And so, Simon, this was your first, if I'm not mistaken, this is your first supervised high intensity workout, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we both kind of noted during and at the end that we probably had a more productive workout because, one, we were sort of competing. Although you thrashed me on anything that was pushing orientated, and secondly, we had Nigel sort of shouting over us, telling us to train harder and throwing in some advanced techniques. So I found it to be far more productive than training myself. What did you think?
I thought, I definitely thought the bit of competition was sort of pushing us both a bit more than you normally would. I was thinking as well, in a way, I'm probably quite good when I'm by myself at pushing myself for the exercise, which I know maybe not everyone is, but I seem to really be able to push myself when I'm on my own. But but definitely the competition upped it. But also the few advanced techniques I found really good when Nigel's just even the slight assisted, pushing for maybe your last rep or two, helping you then to get the negatives into the equation. I think, was it on the chest press when we did maybe 3 negatives, and I was just dead after that. I could barely lift my arms, so that was great. I haven't been able to, you can't do that by yourself.
Yeah, that's true. And also, one of the things that was kind of cool was we were talking about, where Nigel would do like an assisted rep. In some cases, he wouldn't use much force at all, right? But because you're seeing his hand help, it gives you that psychological kind of edge that you think, oh, I'm getting help here, so I should be able to complete the rep. And then you do, despite, the fact that he's not actually helping that much at all.
You probably think he's helping trick. More than he is.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I thought the band pullover we were talking about there, I thought that was a great one because I'd never thought of doing it like that before. And I have bands at my house here that I use, for certain things. But it's just a great exercise to be able to do. If someone even doesn't have access to a gym and they have some bands, it's just a great way of getting that pullover movement. I never thought of doing it that way, where you're standing and sort of doing it as opposed to the usual lying down type version.
Yeah, totally. What else was poignant for you? What other kind of like learning opportunities do you think you had in that environment?
Let's see. I think definitely the bands. I mean, even the reverse delt band we did was interesting because I do that fairly regularly, maybe once a week, but very much as a bit of just a separate a HIIT workout, a bit of a rehab, or prehab, whatever you want to call it, because I do have a slightly dodgy shoulder, but it's okay. But I like doing a bit of band work on it. But I haven't done it the way Nigel was doing it with us, where you're actually doing it to failure. And I think that even for the DOMs the next day, that made a difference right in between my shoulder blades. So certainly, working well for the muscles there. So I thought that was good. And I definitely thought a few negatives. I think we did negatives on the dips as well, which was good. And definitely a little bit of assisted. Like you're saying, you think he's probably assisting you more. So you're like, okay, I can get this. But he's probably, when I look back at some of the videos, he's actually barely touching it. So it does show you probably have, one more rep that you don't fully realize in the tank. It was good.
We used quite a lot of advanced techniques, and I think it was partly sort of Nigel showcasing, the skill set, with the negatives, assisted reps. We had a few rep pauses, drop sets. It's interesting. There was some research that came out, I think Luke did with James Steele and James
trying
Fisher.
To kill us.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So it's important to note that in this, because that's obviously part of the context. It's more of an event than, an actual workout. But, the research that Luke and both of the Jameses did, I think showed that there's no advantage in terms of strength or muscle hypertrophy above doing just a single set to positive failure versus doing advanced techniques. I could be wrong there on the outcomes and I can't remember exactly what they measured. But what, Luke did say to me once, he said, I don't care. Like, even though there's no perhaps greater benefit, I like the fact that it provides some sort of novelty. And I think as a trainer, when you're trying to, keep the workouts interesting to your clients, these advanced techniques can really be helpful in taking what is a very safe and principle in terms of a HIIT workout and then making it a little bit more interesting at times. Nigel, I'm just wondering if that's the case for you. Like, have you found that using advanced techniques has been really helpful in your business in terms of making it more interesting for your clients, or are you using those quite sparingly?
I would definitely use them sparingly, because obviously if you're doing negatives and stuff like that, it's quite intense on the body, and if someone is training 2 or 3 times a week, that's going to be it's going to be quite intense for them to try and recover from that. But definitely I think I think people do need some variety. Like, you get away with doing the same program sometimes for at least 6 weeks anyways, and people will get good results and be happy enough to do it. But after a certain amount of time, I think you need to change it up, even just for the the client themselves, so they don't kind of plateau, and also just for that bit of variety as well. I think it's good to switch things up and use some of the advanced techniques. I think they're they're useful to use. But as I said, some of them you just have to use sparingly and not kind of, not kind of beat the client down to the point where they're not recovering in between workouts.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one of the things you started doing with me, I noticed when I was training, which was really beneficial and interesting, was you would kind of make me speed up during a concentric a little bit faster, because I think maybe it's a habit, maybe it's something that is better suited to better designed machines, that you can get more productive, slower concentric. But where we're using, machines that are not quite as good in some cases, it felt like when the concentric was faster, or the positive, I don't know what the concentric is, it just felt more productive. I just felt, more fatigue. And whereas otherwise, if it was slower, it's like you can kind of use it to kind of try and get some cheeky recovery in there and rest a little bit. So did you notice that, Simon? Did you notice that? I don't know whether, maybe you were moving faster than me, but was Nigel getting you to move faster during the concentric, during some of your movements?
Well, maybe near the end, when I was getting near the last couple of reps, I definitely remember him saying, "Go fast, like go faster." Okay. And then you're trying to go fast, but in reality, you're actually going very slow because you just physically can't go fast. Yeah. But I remember as well on the row, the sort of seated pulley type row. And I was asking him, and afterwards he said sometimes with his own training, he'll maybe in the last rep or two, he'll go a bit quicker, using a bit of momentum just to get the last couple of reps, where you can't really do it slowly. Maybe again, like you were saying, because of the piece of machinery, and then it lets him do a nice slow negative on it, which probably wouldn't be possible without just getting the momentum sort of drive for that, getting that last rep or two in the positive. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Like, Nigel, do you want to talk about that? Like, just talk about that a little bit, why you made me speed up a little bit on the concentric, and your kind of thoughts about
that? Yeah, so generally, I know you're used to doing I think like a 10-10 cadence, is it? Or
well, I've kind of moved to doing, like, I don't count it, so I kind of make sure, basically my rule is I want to have very smooth turnarounds at either end, and then I don't really care about the middle, but as long as it's not a jerky movement, right? So like what that tends to do is express itself organically as like probably somewhere between 4 and 6 seconds on either excursion. So yeah, like a 4-4 or a 6-6, depending on the exercise, obviously. So
yeah, I mean, generally I would do probably the slowest I do is like a 4-4 tempo, so 4 in the positive and 4 in the negative. I think that day we were probably doing more of a 2 to 3 seconds on the positive, and then a 1 second in the contracted position on some of the exercises. But yeah, generally the speed up on the concentric is generally more towards the end of the set. Like if the person is fatiguing, and they're almost kind of reaching fatigue towards the end, it can be useful to tell them to kind of to go a little bit faster towards the end. And as Simon said, it generally ends up being a fairly slow repetition anyways. But when you're trying to reach that point of fatigue, sometimes it can be useful just to try to imagine as if you're trying to drive it down or do the concentric a bit faster. And then obviously keep the negative control then as well. So you're still getting the negative part of the workout as well.
So I wanted to, when we met up, you were talking about your own progress and training. You were in great shape, and you said that it's probably the best shape you've been in. I'd love to just hear like what you're doing for yourself in terms of workouts, maybe touch on your diet, other factors that you think have contributed to your where you're at currently.
Yeah, so over the last while, I've kind of switched in between full body workout and then a split workout. Over the last while, I've been doing a kind of 2 to 3 day split. But before that, for a good while, for probably 2 months anyways, 2-3 months, I was doing a full body workout. And that was probably 2 days a week. And there was no real kind of specific days. It was just whenever I felt like my body was recovered enough to go again. And I think I made a lot of progress on that one. I haven't obviously measured, I'm not measuring my muscle gain except for looking in the mirror, like, and seeing visual progress. But yeah, do you want me to go through the full workout that I was doing?
Yeah, sure.
So the full body workout I was doing was, the first exercise was a pullover. I was doing that with either a dumbbell or a resistance band as well. And then I was doing weighted chin-ups. So that's where you attach obviously a plate and try and do some weighted chin-ups. So I was doing the weighted chin-ups to fatigue. Now on the concentric on that one, I might have been going a bit faster than 4 seconds, just because you have like a 15, 20 kilo weight hanging from you as well. But slow negatives on that one as well. And then I was doing some negative only reps on that one as well. So I go to pretty much the positive fatigue and then try to do some negatives as well. And then I would go into cable fly. So the cable fly was like a pre-exhaust. I would do a cable fly and then an incline dumbbell press. So that was for the chest. Then do a leg extension followed by a leg press or squat. So that was again pre-fatigued, pre-exhausting the quadriceps, and then going straight into a leg press or a squat, a barbell squat as soon as possible. Then I do weighted dips. So I was doing weighted dips with obviously a weight attached to you as well. A band extension, so that was a tricep extension. And the last one then was just a lateral raise for the shoulders. And that was pretty much it, actually, yeah. So I think there's probably about 9 or 10 exercises there.
Okay, and was that like the A routine, full body?
Yeah, so that was the full body routine. Now that's I would repeat that on the second day as well. I didn't really change it that much. I may not do the negatives, or sometimes I substitute the weighted chin-ups and just do a pull down, like the underhand reverse grip pull down. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the workout pretty much stayed the same,
Okay, so you would do that twice a week, and typically your recovery period would be variable and based on when you just felt ready to work out again. But on average, it would be twice a week, full body, that workout.
Yeah, it's trying to be like, if I train on a Monday, I'd probably train again on a Thursday or Friday.
And how has that now changed? Because you hinted at doing a split more recently.
Yeah, so at the moment, I've been splitting up a little bit more, just doing a kind of 3-day a week. So I'm doing like a leg day, and then I'm doing like a push day, which is more just chest, shoulders, and triceps. And then I'm doing a pulling day where I'm just doing back and biceps.
Cool. And have you found that to be more productive or just as good? Hard to say, probably.
Yeah, it's probably hard to say, to be honest. I do find it good. I like sometimes splitting it up just to kind of focus a bit more on the muscles you're trying to bring up a little bit. Like if I'm trying to bring up a certain muscle group, sometimes I'll, hammer that one a little bit more, like especially on the back and biceps day. I tend to go a bit more on the arms and the biceps. But yeah, I just find it good sometimes just to kind of, again, for my own variety, and just to switch it up a little bit as well.
Got to prioritize the bicep curls.
Yeah, I always got to get the biceps in, yeah.
So, Simon, what about you? I mean, you've been, training in this fashion for 6 years. You mentioned, I think, and then before that, obviously, all sorts of different stuff. So, where have you come to in your own journey? What does your training look like now? What have you found to be most productive for you?
My current training is pretty much now once a week. I'll tend to go to the gym and use machines once a week. Now, maybe a second day, say that's usually a Friday. By the next, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, I might do a bit of a workout at home because I have some weights here. But I'm getting more to the once a week at this stage. But part of that is just down to timing and having the time free to do it, and it does. I change a bit. Some of it's your fault for listening to your podcast, because then I'll get an idea of one of your guests. I'm like, I'm gonna do that now. I've done the very, like Nigel's saying, a split routine similar enough to that. I've done maybe two a week of full bodies. Yeah, but currently I'm not sure. I don't know if I haven't noticed one making a big difference over another, to be honest. I think some of it's just down to the variety, keeping it interesting. Maybe in my head, I'm thinking, well, if I tweak this, I'll get the that extra pound of muscle. The whole hypertrophy thing that you're trying not to talk about these days. And you think, well, maybe I'll actually get a little bit more. Whether I do or not, I'm not sure. But it keeps you motivated and it keeps you interested in just tweaking things. But I do enjoy it anyway. But yeah, probably a once a week at this stage. Maybe and that's probably machines. The second workout, if I do one at home, is more of a barbell type workout, which I do enjoy. I know it's probably not a lot of maybe hit people stick more to the machines, but I think you can do a few of them safely enough, depending on what equipment you have. I have the safety bar, so you can fairly much go to failure without getting yourself in trouble.
Awesome. And it's interesting because you seem to me to kind of fit in a way the kind of hit client demographic quite well. You're a management accountant by trade, so clearly smart guy, family man, time starved. And so it does seem to really kind of suit you in that sense. So that's really interesting. Cool. Nigel, I want to talk a little bit about what's it like being a HIIT PT in Dublin. So you've kind of mentioned earlier in this conversation, you kind of saw when you started learning about high intensity training, you could see that it made sense because it was more efficient from a earnings perspective. You could fit shorter workouts in, more clients in, still charge, premium prices for the, getting people great results. So tell me, what made you start a business specifically in terms of becoming a personal trainer in HIIT in Dublin?
So I guess initially, I guess I always had an interest in health and fitness anyways. And when I started off, I ended up working in financial services because I wanted to do something like sports science and didn't have the points to do that. So I ended up studying business studies, and then obviously that took me on a different route in that. And then, working in offices and stuff like that, I kind of, even myself, I started to kind of fall into unhealthy patterns where you were, working late or whatever, and you were consuming the wrong food, and you weren't really, you weren't really looking after yourself. You were
going out for pints.
Yeah, that's a big part of the Irish thing as well. Obviously, going out for drinks and stuff. So it's easy to notice the weight coming on and that. So and time is I think for most people, time is the main factor. Like, so the attractive part for me when I learned about high intensity training was, taking away that almost excuse I suppose that a lot of people have, is that they don't have time to work out because there's such a misconception that you need to have, if you're going to exercise, you need to have, train 3 or 4 days a week, and you need to do like 4 or 5 hours a week in the gym and stuff like that. So for me, it was just about being able to have the opportunity to, first of all, kind of dispel that myth that you need to spend loads of time in the gym to get results. And then obviously, to set up my business that way. I was able to, set up my business in a way that my workouts were safe, effective, and efficient, and all my kind of website and marketing was based around that as well. And then the area that I'm in a kind of corporate area as well, so it's very much people that don't have much time to exercise and and don't really want to spend tons of hours. Most people don't want to spend hours in the gym if they can get the same results 60, 90 minutes a week as they can in by spending 3 or 4 hours in the gym. Then they're always going to want everybody wants the faster option. Obviously it's not easy. High intensity training it's far from easy, but that's I guess that's why I kind of started anyways, or why I set up as a high intensity trainer.
And you've got a great spot. You obviously currently working out of a gym in it's Ballsbridge, isn't it? It's the area in Dublin.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Ballsbridge 4, yeah.
Right, and there's a sort of business estate, right? Practically circling the area, so it's perfect for your clientele, obviously. I'd be just interested, how many people from the sort of people that you tend to work with who are creating from ramps, probably higher income individuals, business types, executives, people whose time is obviously very precious. How many of those people do you find will try something like high intensity training and be like, I don't like this, and will just not really buy into it?
I guess I've been lucky in a way. I've never really had anyone that's, flat out kind of, not bought into it. Like, obviously you'd have some clients, that may come and go, like, and, not everybody, sometimes people will do a trial session and, maybe they don't sign up for whatever reason. But I mean, in a way I think you have to kind of, you want clients that are going to be willing to work hard, like, and some people will come in with a false expectation that this is going to be, easy, and like they're kind of just putting the responsibility on you as a trainer that, it's all in your hands now, and they don't take any responsibility themselves. So I always try and, it's a kind of learning curve. When I started off, I might have taken on clients and, maybe the wrong type of clients for me because they weren't willing to put in the effort. But now I kind of set the expectation up front at the start that, this is going to be, it's going to be hard work, and you're going to have to put in the effort into the workouts and stuff like that to get results. And yeah, most people when they realize, what it's like, and they realize when they put in the effort that they're going to get results, then, they'll be 100% on board.
It's part of the learning curve, isn't it? Because I think it's probably quite a lot to expect new trainers to kind of be experienced enough to try and filter out clients in the beginning, and maybe that's something you learn as you progress. But I think it's like you say, it's important to obviously understand, the people that you want to work with, the right fit for your service. Those individuals that you mentioned there who kind of get exposed to it for you for the first time and they get great results. I'd love to hear, do you get any kind of really interesting feedback in terms of people that are just like, wow, I never knew this was even possible. I didn't know you could do HIIT, or strength train or exercise, whatever you want to call it, once or twice a week. And that all that stuff you see outside where people are doing, running 6-7 days a week is, certainly for getting better body composition probably isn't that productive. Do you get like feedback like that from people? Do you get kind of shocked responses to this at all?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I've had a lot of clients that have come to me initially, and they would have been used to training, with high volume of exercise. I remember one guy was doing like German volume training, which is like, massive amounts of volume, like 10 sets of 10, and doing that a couple of times a week. So for him, it was a big shock, like, but after we do the workouts, and when we finish the workout, he'd realize that, this was the real deal, like, and he'd feel the fatigue in his body. And I think when people actually experience the workout, it's the workout themselves kind of makes them believe that, something is happening within their body. They're starting to feel their muscles and feel things that they haven't felt before.
Yeah. So again, it comes back to that experience. It's like you can articulate it till the cows come home, but really you need people to experience this stuff, and that will do perhaps all the talking for you. Once they've felt their muscles training to a certain level of fatigue, which they may not have felt with, a higher volume, lower intensity program or some sort of aerobic thing they were doing in the past, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And for most people, to be honest, it's just about, even without even going to fatigue, even just slowing down the movements, like, because so many people come into me and they're used to, training themselves or seeing other people in the gym training, and even just a simple act of slowing down the movement and taking a 3 or 4 seconds on the positive and 4 seconds on the negative, even just that just kind of makes them feel their muscles more, and they feel the difference then as well.
Have you got any kind of like things you've learned in terms of when you're talking to people about HIIT? I get questions from people, listeners and members who are always sort of struggle with trying to articulate this kind of service, especially if they start talking about high intensity training, when they start maybe using those words which don't always need to be used, and when they start talking about working intensely, working really infrequently, they might struggle to convince the client as they're so used to hearing the opposite, right? So do you have any tips on the kind of messaging you would use when you're talking to people for the first time in order to try and convince them to give this a go?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, I guess, with high intensity training. It can be hard to articulate it sometimes to a person. Like, and people think that I had someone last week just on the phone that thought that when I said, that my philosophy or training methodology is high intensity training, they thought it was obviously the high intensity interval training. So you have to explain that it's kind of the complete opposite to that,
How do you explain that?
How to explain that it's
I'm not asking necessarily to do it verbatim, like how you do it, but I'm just curious because I say, let me just give you an example, right? So if someone says to me, I say, what training do you do? I generally will say like strength training or resistance training, because if I say high intensity training, it's so highly ambiguous now and cliche that people will go, oh yeah, I do that. Always give people say I do that, and I'm like, no, you don't. Like, what do you do? And then they obviously do some kind of version of high intensity interval training or Tabata or fill in the blank. And then I say this. I say I do a form of strength training that was popularized. Obviously, I only say this if I have to. That was popularized in the 70s by the likes of Arthur Jones and a few others, which is effectively resistance training. You can see it's already too long. Done to failure relatively slowly, typically a single set, full body workouts. And I'll say something to that effect, hoping that might make sense. But I'm just curious, when someone says to you, how do you answer that question?
Yeah.
What is
so generally I have something I say that I basically say high intensity is a type of training that is progressive resistance training, and it's characterized by a high level of effort. So it's focused on the intensity and its progressive nature, and it's a safe, effective, and efficient method of training. And it's characterized by you're not training for a long time, so lower frequency of training. That's pretty much it. We're trying to keep it as simple as possible, because if you complicate it too much, then people are kind of lost.
Yeah, that was already 10 times better than I do it. So I'm going to steal that from you probably. Simon, what about you? Do you get people, obviously people see your incredible physique, right? And they must ask you, what do you do for training? So how do you reply to that? Just curious.
I usually just say weight training. The odd time if I mention or if they ask a further on question and I mention high intensity training, they immediately think of the HIIT, and then you have to go, well, no, and they're like, oh yeah, I've done a bit of that, and you're like, I don't think so, or they say, I've heard of that on the radio the other day, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure you haven't, because especially here, like you're saying, we're the only three that we know of in Ireland that are trained this way, so so you just have to explain, no, it's different, it's a in high intensity sort of weight training, blah blah blah, and a bit of the one set to failure type sort of one liner, and then they generally lose interest after that anyway.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I just want to take a moment to say, I think, this podcast obviously called High Intensity Business, and but one of the things that I learned from Skylar is probably the best way to sell high intensity training is never actually mention high intensity training for the most part, because it's not really that relevant. Obviously, I don't want to sound disrespectful. The founders of this, I have enormous respect and admiration for, and have done great work. But in terms of how we sell it today, it probably doesn't serve us that much to actually talk about here. And I know that, for instance, I remember James Fisher saying to me, or Steele, that they prefer to use evidence-based resistance training or something to that effect. So I think it's important to have some flexibility and not be dogmatic about some of this terminology, because you might actually find that you can, people are more likely to be open and listen to you, and you'll be able to sell more effectively. One of the other things that was interesting, and I kept kind of asking you about, Nigel, during dinner, was how do you make this work in Dublin? I mean, Dublin right now, correct me if I'm wrong, is one of the most expensive cities to live. The real estate is higher than London, I think, right now, on average. Obviously, I mean, maybe it's a simple answer, but I'm just curious, from a financial point of view, business model point of view, how do you make it work in Dublin? You don't have to necessarily go into specific numbers. I'm just want to say that up front. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it can be challenging because, as you said, Dublin is an expensive place, and it's getting even more expensive than that. Yeah. But I mean, generally, if I have, without going into massive numbers, but if I have generally kind of 15 to 20 clients training on a weekly basis, that's more than enough for me, without getting too kind of bogged down so that I'm just spending all my time in the gym, because you have to have a kind of balance as well, because it's easy to, to burn out and kind of, lose the passion sometimes yourself as well. But generally I try and have, anywhere from kind of 7 to 8 maybe clients a day. I don't always have 7 to 8 clients a day, but generally if I have that, some in the morning time and some in the evening, it can be split up like that, because the area that I'm in, it's people that are, training either in the morning before work or the evening. You get some people who are more time flexible, who can train, at 9, 10 or 11 o'clock, which are good times to get. But, I mean, generally, if you can do it that way, that's, I guess the first step is to just kind of get into a comfortable, where you have 15 to 20 clients training on a weekly basis, and that should see you kind of earning at least, up on plus 4,000 a month anyways, or 4,000 to 5,000 a month, fairly comfortably, like. So obviously it can vary from month to month with, people away and stuff like that. But I've tried to set up my business in a way that, I have people on direct debits, and it's automatic recurring billing, and then they pay on a month to month basis. And if they miss sessions, they have to make up the sessions themselves. Because otherwise, I used to have people just pay, whenever they'd finish the session pack, and people would drag out sessions and stuff like that as well. So lots of little stuff like that you kind of learn as you go along. You learn from your mistakes. So you have to change the way, your business has to be set up, obviously, for you to be able to be profitable, and obviously to benefit, your clients as well.
What software tools do you use to manage that?
So at the moment I'm using Stripe just for payments. I used to use another one called Authorize.net, but some of the fees were quite high in that one. So I use Stripe for payments, and then the only other software I use is for email marketing and that's ActiveCampaign. I think that's the one I use. It's quite good, and it's quite it's not that expensive either.
Oh, I didn't remember you saying to use that, actually, because I think you may have mentioned that when we met the other day. But no, I use ActiveCampaign, and it's just amazing. It's I think I don't often recommend it to hit business owners, because I think if they're using something like Mindbody or one of those kind of complete fitness management suites, then they might not need ActiveCampaign, because for those that don't know, ActiveCampaign is basically an email service provider. So you put all your customer emails in there, and then you can do all your email automations through there. So if you need to send a weekly newsletter or have certain triggers in place, so like if, for instance, their credit card fails, you can have it so that an email sent out and says you might need to update your credit card details, so that you don't manually have to do all this stuff. And ActiveCampaign is like software that pretty much automates all of that, which is why it's so valuable. But I'm not sure if Mindbody covers some of that. I know it covers some of those features. And so, basically what I'm saying here is it might not make sense for people to invest in both platforms, but it's just to bear that in mind. So cool. Okay. So those are the main tools. What are, from your perspective, you're currently, we're operating out of a commercial facility. I was sort of like trying to probe you over dinner about kind of your long-term plans. Now, how do you find working at a commercial facility? Do you think that's a good move for high-intensity personal trainers in Ireland, or just generally?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just I guess I needed a place to train my clients, and I needed an area that was going to have a good flow of people and that. So I think if you're a person who's starting off, just in order to make sure that you have a good flow of clients, you're probably going to need to start off in a commercial gym at some point, because it's a lot easier when you're in the gym to get clients from there. Obviously, if you have a studio and that, it's you have a lot more marketing involved, and you're obviously relying on the foot flow and traffic around the area. So yeah, I mean, it has its pros and cons. Like sometimes it can be difficult when the gym is quite busy, and you have a workout plan and it doesn't always go to plan, or you have to kind of change it up on the spot and go to different exercises and stuff like that. But yeah, for the most part, it's I find it okay. I have good client base, and you get to know the members and stuff like that as well. So I think it's a good place to start off. Obviously, at a certain point, it would be nice to to scale up or to employ people and set up as a independent location and have your own studio as well.
That drives me bloody mad. That does, when people are on the machines when you're trying to do your program, especially when they're doing like 10 sets or something. It's just like, I know you should never do it, and I've never had people come up to me, and I would probably never go up to someone else and say, this is what you should do, or I'm not likely to do that. But it's just so ever so tempting. When they're doing such a redundant number of sets, you're like, you are just retracing the same steps. It's just complete wastage for the most part, in my opinion. And I think you and I, Simon, both shared a similar sentiment around that, didn't we? When we're working out in the gym and that,
Yeah. Or when people are on their phone for 10 minutes in between their sets.
Yeah, that's the other thing, yeah.
Although I have found it does usually work in Ireland anyway. Maybe it's because people are more friendly in Ireland, I don't know. To just go up and say, hey, look, I'm just doing a single set to failure. Do you mind if I just jump in? And they're usually more than happy. Unless they're like the real kind of bodybuilder type who is like so anal about, the perfect recovery interval, and, they don't want you to mess with their machine. I think that's the only exception to that. You might upset those people. So in terms of you mentioned there, long-term plan, Nigel, potentially open up a studio or something like that, which would be so cool. And I'd definitely be down there to try out for sure. What's your thoughts on, the opportunity in Dublin right now? I'm thinking it's my hope to, part of the kind of objective of the podcast is really to promote this way of training in terms of obviously getting more people to do it, but also getting more trainers and then having more people trained by them. So what's your thoughts on there in terms of the opportunity in Dublin and I guess in Ireland right now for this type of trainer? You mentioned earlier about how one of the reasons you decided to do it was because, obviously one, it was very logical, but also it differentiated you, which was really interesting. So do you think there's a lot of opportunity for trainers right now to start doing this kind of business?
I think there is. It's because it's just so not mainstream in Ireland at the moment. That there's definitely an opportunity there, for more people to get into, for more trainers to get into this type of training. But I think it's just, I guess people when they're trained by the normal certification. For personal trainers, they don't go through anything like this, and it's people generally aren't that open-minded. I think you have to be kind of open-minded towards this type of training as well. And if you're not, then you just kind of stick with the mainstream kind of advice and the stuff that's popularized by the mainstream. And then that's why I guess high intensity training isn't really that big of a thing in Ireland yet.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess that's the same in a lot of places, isn't it? And have you got any tips for the... Oh, go on. Sorry, Sam, you're going to say.
Sorry, Lawrence. I was just thinking as well there, probably weight training in general is very low down on people's, I'm thinking of people I know, or there's probably 3 or 4 of my friends who we actually are into weight training, but literally outside of them, no one else I know does weights. Plenty of people do running. Even out in the, driving the streets today, there's there's so many people obviously in training for marathons and things like that. So a lot of people think running is, you know, the number one thing to do, or they'd be doing various gym classes, which can be great. But like probably things that Doug McGuff has said before, that no matter what weight training you're doing, sort of strength training should be the, you know, the basis of your training. Even if you are doing other things, at least get in once or twice a week and get the sort of the bases covered with your strength training. And there's probably a huge, you know, educational gap maybe on that in general. In I don't know, in Ireland, probably around the world, where a lot of people just think of weight training as, you know, power lifters or Olympic lifters or big strong guys in the gym, and they don't think it's something they can do. And there's probably, you know, a huge increase that's there if people were more, if they knew the benefits and they're more willing to give it a go, maybe, as opposed to just going out for a, you know, 5K run.
Yeah, it's obviously still, very, as you said, a very niche thing. And I remember Doug saying, I think it was on someone else's show, or it might have been mine, you know, just lift weights. He would say to people, like, don't worry about doing HIIT, don't worry about doing fill in the blank, like resistance training protocol, just lift weights. And I also think that, and I'm not the first to say this, I think that one of the ways we can grow the awareness and get more people doing this is just demonstrating, and hopefully, you know, I'm sure you've done that during this podcast, Nigel, and I've done on other podcasts, is hopefully just demonstrating to people the enormous opportunity there is in this kind of business, because effectively you're doubling your earnings because you're taking what is typically an hour PT session down to half an hour, and in an ideal world you're not changing your price for that, and so you're doubling in that sense, and because you're delivering such enormous value and saving people time, there's a real kind of justification behind that. And so I think, it's my hope that more personal trainers will come on board, because this is the most efficient, effective, and safe way we know how to train. I mean, the evidence supports that. And so if you can show people actually you can make a good living doing this and build a great business, which has been evidenced over and over again, then hopefully that will grow. And, you know, we will see this business become more popular in the fitness industry than the likes of some of the alternatives, you know, CrossFit, Orange Theory Fitness. Clearly they're great business models, right? Clearly that people are, you know, they're highly profitable. If they wouldn't have scaled like they have, is certainly my sense. And, you know, I know a lot of us in HIIT are just driven mad by that, because, you know, a lot of what they do is incomplete or dangerous. And so that's my hope. And hopefully people like you, Nigel, well, all of us here can have some kind of impact in our own way and try and improve that. But I'm just curious, you know, on that kind of theme, Nigel, what would be your tips to young trainers? You know, let's maybe keep it, I mean, this is obviously universal, right? But if we talk about young trainers in Ireland who are starting out, you know, getting into high intensity training, what might your advice be to those people starting out trying to build a business?
In high intensity training, is it?
That's right. Yeah, just, you know, high intensity personal training.
So I think if you're a personal trainer in high intensity training, the first thing you need to look at, I guess, is where you're going to set up, like, or what your location is going to be and what gym you're going to be in. So obviously I started off in a commercial gym, but it was an area that I knew there was going to be a good footfall, and there was a high membership base as well. So I think ideally when you're starting off, you want to be looking at a place that has, you know, up on with 1,500 to 2,000 members, probably just starting off. And the rest of it is, you know, regardless if you're a high intensity trainer or not, the rest of it is really just getting your name out there. Like, and, you know, at the start, you're going to have to offer a lot of, you know, free trials at the start. I did free trials and free consultations just to kind of, you know, get people in the door, like, and get people experiencing the workouts. And then, you know, if you deliver the main thing is you're delivering a good service and you're getting people results, and people are seeing the changes themselves. Once you do that, then it's just getting people to know about it. It's doing a good job and telling, you know, getting them to tell 3 or 4 of their friends, and then all of a sudden then they come along, like, you know, and then you have more people on board, and it's keeping people consistent as well, and setting up your packages in a way that are designed to, retain people rather than just having people come for a month and then leave. I generally set up my packages in a way that I have people for a minimum of 12 weeks so that they get good results in 12 weeks, and then most of them stay on after that because you've developed a good relationship with them. So you could have clients from anywhere from kind of 6 to 12 months. And then a lot of it is just, how you develop with the client or how you build the relationships as well. Like a lot of it is, if you're doing one-to-one training, it's, a lot of it is your personality as well. Some clients just kind of gel well with other people. There's some of the best, most successful personal trainers out there. The workouts might not be anything special, but they get on well with clients, and then they can retain their clients.
Absolutely. Awesome. In terms of your marketing, is it practically all word of mouth for you now? How do you acquire new clients at this time?
Yeah, so a bit of word would be word of mouth, referrals. So I have a thing where referrals, if my clients refer 2 people, then they get free sessions. So it's like incentivized referrals. I get the odd bit from the website. The last client I just got there last week came from the website. She was just new to the area and she was Googling personal trainers in the area. And then people from the gym then as well, people that would see you in the gym. We can do a small bit of marketing in the gym, not that much. I've also done seminars and that before as well in the area, just to educate people, and then again that's a way to get clients as well.
Yeah, awesome tips there. Cool, guys. This has been fun. So, any parting thoughts? Anything that I didn't ask that either of you would like to mention about the training, the workout, HIIT business? Fill in the blank.
No, I don't think so. I think just in regards to training, I think it's a lot of it is, a lot of it is consistency. If people are consistent, even if they're not doing high intensity training, if you're consistently training 2 to 3 times per week, if I even take myself as an example, it's I've been training consistently now for a long time without, I might take a rest for a week or 2 weeks or something like that. But, you can get away with it. Whereas if you take, most people that end up going heavy or going hard for 8 to 12 weeks and then they're gone, they burn out and they take a long time out of the gym. That's what kind of stops people from making progress. They're not staying consistent in that.
Well said. What's the best way for people to find out more about you, Simon? Do you have? I mean, I should have probably asked this before we actually recorded. Is there anything any kind of? You don't have to. I mean, is there an email address or any kind of online website or anything like that you want to leave for the listeners?
I no website.
This is your chance.
Probably not really.
No worries, no problem.
I will just maybe add in about the training in general. Just
go for it.
Just to try and for different people out there, just to try and enjoy it. Enjoy the journey. You might be tweaking things or whatever, and as Nigel is saying consistency. But if you enjoy it, you're going to be consistent. So have a bit of fun with it, and the progress will come. You'll people might take different paths, but we'll all end up in the same place.
Yeah, I think that's actually great advice. Simple but really effective. Nigel, what's the best way for people to find out more about you? What's your website and any other contact information you want to give at this point?
Yeah, so my website is www.specializedpersonaltraining.com. It's a bit of a mouthful. And then my email is info@specializedpersonaltraining.com. So I'm still doing trial workouts and stuff like that if there's people local to Dublin. And I am doing some online coaching. I'm going to start setting up like a membership thing for online training as well, and that's on my website as well. There's an area where you can go in and inquire about online coaching as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's awesome. Thanks for leaving that. Cool. Was that slightly inspired by our conversation over dinner?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, yeah, it kind of was. Yeah, because I mean, I have kind of tools for online coaching, but I don't really have. I need to start doing more videos and actual demonstration videos, and that site that you mentioned seems quite good actually. So I'll be talking to you about that.
Yeah, happy to help. That's awesome. Oh, damn it. I was going to mention something, but I've totally forgotten. Never mind. And to everyone listening, to find this blog post for this episode, please go to... Oh, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say, who says www before a domain? I think that's the first time I've heard someone say that in like 20 years.
Yeah, as if it's not www.
Anyway, that's what I was going to say. It's not really that interesting and probably not even worth saying, but there you go. So for everyone listening, to find the blog post for this episode, please go to highintensitybusiness.com/Dublin-hit. That's HIT. And for all episodes, please go to highintensitybusiness.com/podcast. That's www.highintensity. And until next time, thank you very much for listening.
Discover how to achieve your health and fitness goals, become a great personal trainer, and build a successful high-intensity training business. Check out highintensitybusiness.com. highintensitybusiness.com.